For this app, I'm using a MyAnineList API. So let's head over to the site. Here I'm gonna go and open up my settings, and as you see, I'm already logged in. So make sure you also log in and create an account. Then go to account settings and open up the API tab. Here, as you see, I already have an app. For you, this section might be empty. So just create an ID. In this app, you have to provide your app name like AnimeBoard. Choose your app tab. In this case, this is going to be Adder because we're developing a Flutter app. Right now, the client ID section is empty, but when we create our app, you can just come back and this will be filled for you. Choose your app description and app redirect URL and all the information. And if you don't have these URLs, you can just use your GitHub homepage or any other dummy URL. It doesn't matter because you're not on production. Make sure your app is non-commercial and you can choose any purpose of use that you want. Also take this agreement and submit. And as I already have my app, I'm not gonna do that. After your app is created, come here and press edit. Then your client ID is gonna be visible here. Take your client ID and start developing the app. To understand more about the API, click on the second link. This will take you to the API documentation. This is comprehensive and explains everything. The API that we're interested the most is our anime API. We're not gonna work with the manga this time. So let's just go and get our animes. So right now I'm gonna be testing the seasonal anime API. Come here and copy it. Now open up a command prompt. Inside that, copy this and also click enter. This is the kind of data that we receive from API. So to get started with the anime tutorial, we need to clone the GitHub repository. As you see, we are in start code. So we can either download the zip file or clone the GitHub repository. I'm gonna go for the latter. Let's head to your file explorer and inside the others bar, type cmd. This will open up a command prompt in the exact location. You can just say get clone and paste the URL that you copied. And this is gonna clone you the GitHub repository. Let's also go to the project directory by typing cd and project name. Now we can just type code dot to open up a new VS Code project containing our files. So this is all the files that we cloned from GitHub repository. I'm gonna go over them. But before that, let's make sure to get the dependencies. For that, I'm going to go to pubspec.yaml file and press Ctrl S or inside the Macintosh, Command S to get the dependencies. The dependencies are gone successfully. So let's go over our files. I'm going to explain some of them. Inside the command folder, we have extensions. I have already created for you some extensions for converting the integer to minute. And this is going to return a string. We have an extension for capitalizing, and we have an extension for picking random item. We also have some styles like the default padding, some text styles. Inside utils, we have a method for getting the current season because we're gonna display animes for the specific season. So we need to know which season are we. Inside the config file, we have our theme. This file contains both our dark theme and also our light theme. Then inside the constants, we have our app colors and also our constants for shared preferences. And lastly, inside the core, we have our error screen and also we have our loader widget. So this is all the files that we have for now. I have also put some dependencies inside pubspec.yaml. We have the carousel slider for displaying the slider. We have a smooth page indicator, Flutter Bloc for state management, HTTP for making API calls. We have shared preferences for storing data locally inside users' local storage. We have cached network image for caching our images, and also staggered grid view. So this is all the starter code. In the next video, we will start creating our application. See you in the next one. So in this part of the tutorial, I want to create some models for our data. Because when we get our data from the server, we need to store them in some models. Those models are going to hold our data. But before you can actually create a model for our data, let's explore how kind of data we have. In a previous tutorial, I showed you how you can use this curl URL inside your CMD to get data. If you want to know how kind of data we are dealing with, you can just copy and paste it inside your CMD, and this is going to return you your data. And make sure you also use your client ID here instead of this client ID text that I taught you to get in the previous video. So when you get the data from your server, this is the kind of data that you're dealing with. Right now we have 4 kinds of data. If we get the data from the search, this is the data that you get. First of all, we have a data parameter, and inside that we have a node. Each node contains an ID, title, and main picture, and each main picture contains medium and large. We also have another model, and this is the model that you get for each anime details. Each anime contains a lot of properties like ID, title, main picture, alternative title, start date, end date, synopsis, and way too many that I can cover in this video. But you can check it out for yourself. We also have get anime by ranking, and the only thing different here is that beside the node, we also get our ranking. And lastly, we have get seasonal anime. So let's now go back inside our application. Inside the lib folder, let's create a folder called models. Inside the models, I'm just going to copy and paste all our models that we have created, because as you saw earlier, we have way too many models to be creating one by one by hand, because these are way too complex. So let's start by exploring our anime. This is the most important model that we have here. It consists of an anime node and also ranking. So we have a lot of nested types inside each other. Anime node in itself contains ID, title, and main picture. And if you take a close look, picture also contains a medium and a large. So this is how we nest our data. We create models that are part of another models. And this way we can have a lot of control over our data inside the app. We also have anime info, and this is actually taking a list of animes. It goes over the list and parses them into anime. It also contains our ranking, and our ranking only contains the rank. But the most complex data that we have is anime details, and as you see, it has quite a lot of properties. And most of these properties in itself are other types. For example, we have the start season, that is in itself another type. It has a year and a season. And we have broadcast and related anime, and way too many. So my suggestion is that you go and study all of these models by yourself. And if you have any question, you can just ask in the comment section. I've also tried to provide some information about what kind of problem these models might have and the kind of data that they return. For example, some of these models are not supported for some specific data. So this is basically all the models that we created. In the next video, we'll go over and create API requests. So now that we are done creating our models, let's start making API requests. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to be using HTTP package to make API calls. So let's create our API folder. Inside this folder, I'm going to be creating 4 methods. Each of them will be dealing with a different kind of anime. The first method I'm going to be creating is getting anime by ranking type. So let's create that. First of all, I'm going to do all my imports and define my method. This method takes 2 parameters. One is a ranking type, and also we have a limit. Make sure the method is async. Inside the method, define your base URL, and this URL contains your ranking type and also your limit. And we get them as parameters here. To get a response, we are going to be using http.get method. The get method is the method that sends a request to the server to get some data, and http is just a prefix to our import. So make sure to parse the URI and turn it into a URL, and then also add your headers. In this case, we have XML client ID and use the client ID that you got from the website. So first of all, we check if the status code is equal to 200, it means it is okay. And then we also take care of the else case. So if the data is okay, we decode our data and take our body. So this is going to be our anime JSON data. From this list of data, I'm getting my anime node list by going to data and the data property. So for that, I define a new list called animes. And first of all, I'm going to check the condition. So if anime node / node main picture is not null, I'm checking this condition because some of the animes do not contain this specific data. So if the main picture is not null, only under this condition, I'm going to go and parse my data and turn it into anime. And lastly, I'm going to be returning my data. So on the else case, if we have an error, I'm just going to throw an exception and print some files. So this was all about getting anime by ranking type. Let's also create our other methods. So now let's create our second method. And this method is returning anime by a query. So let's call it getAnime by search API.dart. And as everything is probably similar to the previous one, I'm just going to copy and paste everything. So this method is called getAnime by search API. It takes a query and is pasting it inside our API. And again, like before, we're making a GET request, pass the API and also our client ID. And if you're successful, I'm just going to get the data, and using our anime info model that I defined earlier, we get our data and convert it into anime info. Anime info in itself holds a list of animes so that we can later return them as animeinfo.animes. And in case we have an error, we're just going to throw an exception and print our error. So this is basically all about getAnime by search. Once you learn one of them, you can easily implement the other ones. 2 more to go, let's also implement them. So the next method that I'm going to define is getAnime details. Let's create a file for that. Again, I'm going to just copy paste everything because as you see, we have a base URL and this time it's a different URL. And let me wrap the lines for you. So as you see, this is the exact URL that we use for curling the data, and it includes all the properties that we use to get. And if you don't want any of these properties, you can just remove it. So just like before, we get our response and we check if our response is valid. And this time, instead of an anime info, we are using an anime details to parse our data. So as you see, these API calls are very similar to each other. So I don't have to explain all of them one by one. Let's create our last file right now. So the last API method that I want to create is the get seasonal animes. If I can spell it correctly. The only big difference here is that this time we have a season. And if you look at this season, we're getting current season through this method. I guess I showed you this method earlier. This is a method that I have defined, and this is getting the current datetime.now and it's checking for the months. So it's checking which season currently we are, and according to that, it gets all the animes for that specific season and for that specific year. And everything is included in the API. You're making a request, get a response, check if the response is valid, get the data, and again we'll receive an anime info. And if the data is not valid, we're gonna receive an error. So this was basically all about making API requests. But if you find it difficult to wrap your mind around how do we get data from server, you can just watch my previous tutorial where I create a simple app and explain all about API. I'll put a link in the description. So this was basically all about APIs. In the next video, I will explain you how to work with user interface. So let's start defining our user interface. Inside the main.dart, right now we are returning a scaffold. Instead of returning a scaffold, I'm going to return a screen called home screen. Let's also go and define our home screen. Inside the lib folder, I'm going to be creating a new folder called screens. And inside that, I'm going to create a file called homescreen.dart. So to have a good idea of what we are building, I'm going to bring emulator to the site. This is the UI that we are going to be creating, and right now I'm going to be focusing on this bottom navigation bar. So this bottom navigation bar is the new material tree bottom navigation bar. and you don't need any package to create it. So let's start defining our home screen. First, define a stateful widget, and I'm gonna call it home screen. This page takes an index. I'm gonna call it index. So instead of a placeholder, I'm gonna return a scaffold. This scaffold has a body and it also has a bottom navigation bar. Inside bottom navigation bar, I'm just gonna return a navigation bar. Navigation bar is the widget that is recently defined by Flutter to replace the old bottom navigation bar widget, and it requires us some destinations. So inside the state class, I'm pasting some files, and these files include my destinations and also my screens. But it sounds like we have some problem here. Maybe I need to put some more parentheses. Beautiful. So now let's put our destinations here, and here we're calling them destinations. And also inside the body, I'm just gonna put my screens. Inside that, I'm gonna say selected index. So let's define our selected index, and selected index is a variable that specifies which screen are we in. We have to define it ourselves. So let's create an integer selected index. By default, it should have a value of 0, but inside the init state, I'm gonna check if we have widget.index. So if our index is provided and this is not null, I'm gonna put my selected index is equal to widget.index. Let's also make sure that this is nullable and that we don't have to provide it every time. And in case this is not null, I'm just gonna use a null check operator. So everything is now in place. We have our screens and this is working according to the selected index. We also have our bottom navigation bar. Beautiful. Now let's run our app to see how it works, and before that, we need to import home screen. So our app is up and running right now, but if you click on any of these items, it is currently not working because inside your bottom navigation bar, you have to use onDestinationSelected. This in turn receives a method that is giving you the value, and all you have to do is just to do a steady state and also change your selected index to the new value that is provided here. So now if you hit save and if you click on any of these items, you see that the screen is being changed. But the bigger problem is right now that inside your bottom navigation bar, you have not specified your selected index. So let's put our selected index to selected index. And now if you click on any of the pages, you see that our indicator is also moving. Now let's also add some elevation. And I'm gonna give you a background color. And this is gonna be a scaffold background color. So maybe I would go with dialog background color. So it was all we had to do for now for creating our bottom navigation bar. In the next video, we will start creating our actual UI and screens. So let's start by building our enemies screen. If you look at the complete design, this is what our enemies screen look like. The first part that we want to build is this image slider. So let's start that. Right now inside the home screen and inside our bottom navigation bar, we only return a couple of center widgets and no screens. So let's replace the first one with the enemies screen. And we also need to create it. So let's make it a stateful widget. Beautiful. And make sure to import it here. We no longer need these screens, so let's close them. So how is our enemies screen gonna look like? First of all, we need to create this app bar and also this search button. So for that, we need to return a scaffold, inside which we have an app bar. Inside the app bar, we have a title with the text of anime board, and also we have an actions with an icon button. Sounds good to me. So let's wrap it with the icon widget. Beautiful. Now to make sure everything is running smoothly, let's also run the app. This is gonna take some time and we will be back. So our app is up and running right now, but we are facing a problem. The first problem that we have is this banner, and I seriously hate that one. So let's get rid of it inside Material app. Here we go, and be gone. The next problem is that we're using a Cupertino icon inside a simple icon. I guess for now we're gonna be more than fine using our simple icon, and it works great. So now we have to work on the body. Right now this button doesn't do anything because we don't yet have our search screen, but later when we click on this button, we should navigate to the search screen. So let's go to our body, and inside that, first of all, we need a single child scroll view. Inside that, I'm going to be needing a column. Inside the column, let's have a size box. This size box has a height of 300. That is the exact size that our image slider has. And inside that, we have a child, and that child is going to be top animes list. So let's actually create this widget. I'm going to go inside library, and I'm going to go to create a new view or a new folder. I'm going to call this folder widgets and top animes widget. Let's create it as a stateless widget. So this widget actually has the job of retrieving data from the API and then returning it. So for that purpose, we need a feature builder, and the feature is going to be one of our API calls. So here I'm going to be using get animes by ranking API. Let's see if we had that. Get anime by ranking type. Let's see what have we called it. Get anime by ranking type API. Okay, so let's change it to anime, and inside the ranking type I'm going to be saying all. It means go to all animes and only get 4 animes for me. So these are going to be the top 4 animes of all time. And inside the snapshot, I'm going to do some checks. For example, I'm going to check if the connection state is waiting. You have to show a loader, and if a snapshot.data is not null, it means if you have data, then you have to return data. Otherwise, it means you have an error. So let's just return an error screen, and inside the error, pass the snapshot.error, and also make sure to turn it into a string. So this is basically if you're loading, show a loader. If you have an error, show an error screen. So in case we have a data and data is not null, I'm just going to return my data. But what is this data gonna be? This is gonna be top anime image slider. So inside here, I'm gonna just return yet another image. So let's go and create that one. But before that, I'm gonna close some of these windows. Inside animes screen, let's just import it here. And instead of top animes widget, what about if we call it top animes list? Beautiful. Now also make sure that this is constant and get out of it. So the next widget that we need to create is top anime image slider, and I'm going to change it to animes. So let's go and create that inside widgets. I'm going to call a new widget, animes image slider dot. So let's start creating our top animes image slider. I'm going to start by doing all the imports all together. And then I'm going to create a stateful widget with the parameter of type animes, because it gives a list of animes as a parameter. We need to have an index to take care of which page we are displaying. We also need the controller to control our image sliding. Inside the build method, we return a size box with a height of 200. Inside the children, return a column. Inside the column, return a carousel slider. This comes from a package we added as our dependency. Put your controller and also the item count, that is going to be the length of the animes. Inside the item builder, we have context, index, and also real index. First of all, get your enemies out of the list of enemies, and then return your top enemy picture. We are going to create this widget later. Inside the options, return acrysal options. The enlarge factor is going to be 0.22. And inside the on page change, I'm going to put my index inside the current page index. Then we have some more properties. That is going to be the aspect ratio of the images. That is going to be horizontal. Viewport fraction, it means it takes 88% of the screen. And also the autoplay is turned on. And our initial page is equal to current page index. So if you see the complete design, you see that we have a page indicator here. So let's create that. Under the size box, put your animated smooth indicator. This is also coming from a dependency. Inside the current index, put your current page index. And inside the count, put the length of the enemies. So we define our effects, and this is going to be a customizable effect. So this is going to be our effect for active button, and this is also going to be our effect for the inactive button. These are quite similar, except for the color, because this is the design that I decided to have. And lastly, I'm going to define my type anime picture. This is this picture that you are seeing, so I define it in a separate widget. It has a clipboard rect to have curved corners. It also has an aspect ratio of 69. That is the exact aspect ratio that we provided here for the carousel options. So now let's save everything, and I'm also going to import this widget, but it doesn't quite recognize it. So let's make sure that this is top anime image slider. Let me copy this, and again this is the problem with the ace. So I'm going to call it top animes image slider. Beautiful. Now let's make the import, and it still requires some animes. So where do we get our animes from? I'm going to say final animes is equal to snapshot dot data, and I'm going to turn it into a list. Let's also pass our animes here. Beautiful. Now if we hit save and go back to our application, we see that we successfully have our carousel image slider, and we can slide it as we want. So this was all about creating our slider. Let's also create other parts. So now that we have successfully built our featured animes, let's also build our other parts. For that, I'm going to go to complete app. This is the next section that we want to build, and as you see, we have quite many of them. So they are actually very similar. All of them are showing a number of 10 animes here. So for that, let's create a widget, and I'm going to go back to the main app. So let's go to the animes screen, and as you see here, yes, here we have the size box with a height of 300, and this is holding our top animes list. That in itself holds the top animes image slider. So the next section that we are going to build is going to be the top animes for each category. So maybe also put some comments here. For example, I'm going to call it featured animes, and there are just 4 of them. Then I'm going to have my top animes, and for that I'm going to put another size box, this time with a height of 350. And inside that I'm going to put my featured animes. Alright, so let's create featured animes, and I'm going to do that inside my views. And talking about views, we don't have a folder with that name, so let's create one. And of course inside library directly, views, featured animes, if I can spell it. So let's create this one as a stateless widget. And if you remember from the complete app, this holds animes from different ranking types. For example, the first one is the top ranked, we have top popular, and top movie animes. So if you remember how we created our APIs, we had a specific API for getting the top animes. And that API was Get Animes by Ranking API. So to use an API, we need a feature builder. So inside the feature, we have to call our API, and that was Get Animes by Ranking type API. And as you see, it requires as a ranking type. And because we don't want to duplicate our widget, I'm gonna get my ranking type as a parameter. I'm also gonna get my label. And the limit is always gonna be 10. So inside the builder, we get a context and a snapshot, and as always, I'm gonna first of all check if it is loading. So if it is waiting, make sure to return a loader. The second case, if we have data, we can check it like this. If a snapshot has data, or we can also check it if snapshot.data is not null. In fact, this is the better way. And the last case is if you have an error. So I'm gonna directly return an error screen. And let's say snapshot.error.toString. So the most important part is here inside if we have our data. So if we have our data, the first thing I'm gonna do is to get my list of animes. And that is inside snapshot.data. Because Snapshot gets its data from this Get Anime by Ranking type API, and this is returning an iterable of type anime. So here I have an iterable of animes to be simply called a list of animes. So as you saw earlier, that widget contained two parts. We had the top part that had the label and also a view all button, and the bottom part was a list of animes that could be scrolled horizontally. So let's create the top part, and for that we need a column. Inside the column, I'm gonna put a size box with a height of 15. This is gonna be our title part, so maybe label it title part. Inside that, I'm gonna put a row with the main axis alignment of space between. So maybe for better understanding, I'm just gonna go to the complete app. So if you take this for example, you see that we have one label and one button. So we have to put some space between them. That's why this is space between. But horizontally, but vertically we want them to be centered. So cross-axis alignment is gonna be center. The first text is our label, and we give it a text style. So that's right. Next, we need to put a button here. And that's gonna be a text button. Wrong place. So inside the on place, I'm gonna put nothing because we have not yet created that widget. But inside the child, I'm gonna create a text, and it's gonna say view all. Beautiful. Now let's also go inside our animes screen and actually import it. So this requires two parameters. The label, and the label is gonna be top ranked. It also requires me a ranking type, and that ranking type is gonna be all. These ranking types belong to the anime website, so you cannot put anything inside it. There are 9 categories, and you have to put the exact same word that they ask for. So now let's just go back to the main app and also run the project to see how it turns out. So our app is up and running right now, and as you see, everything sounds fine. But as you see here, we have some problem with padding. This widget doesn't require to have a padding, but this one does. So maybe we don't need to put them inside the same column. For that, I'm gonna go inside this anime, and I'm just gonna create a new column for this. So this is a column inside another column. And around this column, I'm going to put some padding. And for the padding, I'm going to say padding start no bottom padding. This is actually a default padding, but without the bottom. Let's hit save. And it looks a lot better. So let's go inside our featured animes. We added the top part. We also need to create the bottom part. So the top part is here, inside the row. So under this size box, let's create our list view. And instead of list view builder, I'm going to be using a list view.separateDate. Put commas to format everything correctly. The first thing I'm going to always put is item count. So item count should be animes.length. And there seems to be a problem with it. It is because this is considered to be null. So use a null check operator, because we're sure that the snapshot data is not null. But then we need to put the separator builder, and inside that all we need to do is to put a size box with a width of 10. So this is like putting 10 pixels of size box between every widget. And lastly, we need to create our item builder. Inside it, let's get our anime, and this is inside animes, element at index. So now that we have our anime, let's return it, and we need to return it inside an anime tile. So let's also create our anime tile. Let's save it here and go to anime tile. I'm going to create it inside widgets. And make it a set list. Anime tile takes one parameter, and that is an anime node. So here let's return a size box. With a width of 150 and a height of 200. And inside the child, just return a column with the main and cross axis alignment set to start. And inside the children, we're going to have a clip rect. This is how we want to give some border radius. So inside the border radius, give a border radius dot circular, and this is going to be 8. And inside the child, we use a cached network image. Cached network image comes from a dependency with the same name, and this is useful for caching our images, so it doesn't have to be loaded again every time we visit our API. It has a required property that is image URL, and inside that we need to put anime dot main picture, and I'm gonna put the medium because this is just a preview and not a full screen image. Make sure it covers the entire widget, and also to have an explicit height of 200. Beautiful. Now we also need to put our title, so I'm gonna first of all put some space. A size box with a height of 10 might suffice. Then we need to put our title, so let's put a text, and this is saying anime.title. Because some titles are long, I'm gonna allow them to be up to 3 lines. And for the style, this style has been defined inside the text styles, and please do not mistake it with text style that comes from Dart itself. And for the overflow, I'm gonna say text overflow dot ellipses. So everything seems to be fine right now. Let's import our anime tile and also pass our anime. So inside anime tile, we require an anime node, but this anime is an anime widget, so we need to pass the node here. Nice. Let's also save it here. And I also hard restart the application. Sounds like we have some errors. So we need to add some more things inside our list view. And one of those things might be to make our shrink wrap true, because we have used an scrollable unbounded widget inside another one. So it causes a slight problem, but we say that this is limited and this is not going to go beyond. Beautiful. Now we can see our list view, but we still have some bottom overflow. And that is because we need to change our scroll direction. This is not going to be vertical, but actually horizontal. So let's say the direction is going to be horizontal. And it should do the trick. So let's hard start our app again. So the true problem here is that our list view takes all the space horizontally and also vertically, and we haven't resolved it yet. So this is a good idea to usually put it inside the size box and specify a vertical height. So now I said this is going to be 300, and it worked correctly. So now we could successfully create our featured enemies. And this widget is going to be used in quite a lot of places. Beautiful. So now let's close it. And if we go to the main app, we see that we have top popular, top movies, and top upcoming animes. So let's also create those. From here on, this is going to be just a copy paste. So let me do it this way. 1, 2, 3. This is going to be top popular. This is going to be movie. And this is going to be upcoming. If I'm using the right strings, so maybe I need to go to anime category. So these are the categories that we have, and out of these categories, I want the by popularity, movie, upcoming, and favorite. So let's create them. The first one I'm going to put is by popularity, movie. Let's also put favorite, and I do one more copy, and that is going to be upcoming. So let's hit save. And now we have different categories. Let's also not forget to change their labels and also their comments. This is going to be top popular. I'm also putting the same inside the label. This is going to be top movies. And let me replace that with top ranked. This is going to be top favorited. And I'm going to replace it with here. And lastly, this is going to be top upcoming, and I'm going to also put it here. So if we now hit save, we see that we have different categories. We have top ranked, that is corresponding to this feature, because we featured our first 4 animes. We have top popular, we have top movies, and also top favorited. So this is basically it about our home screen. The next part that I'm going to be working on is this view all button. So right now if you click on it, you get nothing. But I'm going to create a view for that. So let's get into it. So right now if you click on the view all button, this is not going to achieve something. But we want to create a screen that displays all the animes in the list view. So let's actually go and create that. Inside screens, I'm going to create the view all animes screen. So the job of this screen is to get all the animes through API. So let's create that. Beautiful. The first thing we need to return here is a feature builder. And the feature is going to be get anime by ranking API, because if you click on the top ranked animes, it has to display all the top ranking animes. And if you have to click on the top popular, this is going to display a list of top popular. So let's get a ranking type as a parameter. And I also want to pass my label to be displayed inside the app bar. Let's also add them to the constructor. So beautiful. Now come inside the builder. And here we have our snapshot and also context. So the first thing I'm going to do is to take care of loading and waiting state. This is all repeated stuff, so I'm going to be quick. And in case that we have data, and you can check that by saying if our snapshot has data, or if our snapshot data is not null, then we're going to return our list view. So I'm going to be calling it Animes list view, and because we have two of them, one is ranked and one is not ranked, I'm going to call ranked Animes list view. So let's create this widget inside views, and don't forget to say ranked Animes list view dart. So this widget is so simple. It is just a stateless widget. All it does is to return a list view wrapped with a padding, and the padding is going to be our default padding. Inside our child, we have a list view builder. Beautiful. Let's also wrap things correctly. So every list view builder requires an item count and also an item builder. We get the list of animes from the previous screen. So let's say we need a list of animes. Let's import animes, and I prefer to use an iterable instead of a list. Good. So inside the item count, I'm gonna say animes.length, and inside the item builder, we return a function. The first thing I'm gonna do is to get my anime. So my anime is equal to animes.elemented.index. Here we return an anime list tile. We could very well use our anime tile, but that is not how we want our list tile to look. So I'm gonna create a different widget that is anime list tile. Let's go and create that widget. I just copy and paste everything because this is a rather simple widget, and for now we don't have any navigation. Beautiful. So let me just wrap things up inside the ranked anime list view. Maybe I just import my anime list tile and pass my anime that we have above, and inside view all animes screen. Just gonna import my ranked animes list view and pass the list of animes that is of course equal to snapshot.data. We have to make sure this is not null. We also need to pass a limit of 500 here because that is just as many as we can get from the API, as the free version only allows 500 animes for each category. So let's hard restart the app. And let's also not forget to go to our featured animes, because that is when we have our view all button, and add some navigator. So things got a bit out of the screen, and all I did was to create a navigator to navigate to my view all animes screen, because right now we don't have any navigation system. So the app is loaded successfully, and if you now click on this view all button, we're taken to a new screen. But here we have a problem, and maybe the problem is because here we have no scaffold. So I'm just going to wrap it with the scaffold. I'm going to put an app bar. Inside the title, I'm going to put a text that is going to hold the label, and inside the body I'm going to put my feature builder to get the list of animes. because every screen in Flutter needs to have a material ancestor. So let's save this, and everything works as expected. So this list is actually displaying a list of 500 animes. And this is different for each separate widget. For example, if I click on the top movies, we're gonna display a list of top movies. Beautiful. So with this feature out of the way, the next feature that we're gonna work on is gonna be the anime detail screen, because we want to show a detail page for each anime. So let's start building our anime detail screen. I'm gonna close these other windows. Let's go to screens, and this is called anime details screen.dart. So let's start by creating a status widget, right? So the first thing we return is a feature builder, as always, because we're getting some data here. The feature that we're going to be using is get anime details API, because you know that we have a specific API that is getting an anime based on its ID. So let's also define our ID and add it to the constructor. Right? Now we need to go inside our builder. So if we are loading, just simply return a loader. If a snapshot has data, or if a snapshot of data is not null, it means that we have a data. Otherwise, it means we have an error. So let's return error screen. Nice. Now in case that we have some data, we need to return a scaffold. But before that, we need to get our anime. So let's say final anime is equal to snapshot.data. And as you see, this data is returning an anime details here. So for that, we need to return a scaffold. And to have a better understanding of the app, we need to switch to the complete project. If you click on this, you see that this is a detail page, and this is quite a complex widget too. So the first thing that I create here is this image. So inside the scaffold we don't have an app bar, instead we have a body, and inside the body we need a single child scroll view, which in return returns a column as this descendant. Every column has cross-axis alignment, and I'm going to set it to start. So the first child that we're going to have is this image, and because the widget is going to be too big, I just make a separate widget for it. So let's say build anime image widget. So this is going to take a image URL as a property, and this is going to return a stack. Because if you see here, we have a button on top of this image. That's why we need to stack that button. A stack is like a column. It has a list of children. So the first child here is our image. And we can very well use the cache network image and pass our image URL. That is going to be image URL. Let's also make sure that it covers the entire screen and has a height of at least 400. And for the bit, I'm going to say this is going to be double.infinity, because I want it to cover the entire screen. Now we need to put our button. So let's say we define a position. It's going to have a space of 30 pixels from the top and also 20 pixels from the left. And inside this child, I'm going to put a builder. Because if you don't have any builder, we cannot use context. And when we click on this button, this should navigate us back. So we need a builder here. This is where we put our button, and this gives us access to the context. So here I'm going to return an iOS back button. This is a specific button that I define inside a separate widget. This button has an onPressed property, and when you click the onPressed, this is just going to say navigator of context dot pop. So let's create this button, and I'm going to go inside comments, create a folder for widgets, because this is the widgets that we're going to be using in all different features, and I'm going to call it iOS back button dot dart. So I'm just going to copy and paste all the code, and this is basically just a clip or rect around the size box. We use a container for color. In fact, we can just move the width and height inside the container and get rid of the size box with an icon of auto back iOS new. We can very well get rid of this border radius and define a decoration here. Beautiful. Because container widget has a lot of properties in itself, so we don't need a separate widget for clipping it, and we don't need a separate widget for getting a size. Let's also import it, and here we go. Let's make sure these have the same name, and also pass the property. The property is going to be image URL, so let's say anime. So I need to provide main picture, and I'm going to provide the large one. Let's also say that this is not null, because we very well checked that this is not null, but Flutter analyzer still fails to understand that. Let's also put a null checkopter here. This is an error that Flutter gets sometimes, and I think this is a problem with the Dart analyzer. Yes, it was a problem with that, and we actually didn't need this. So now I'm going to save this and go back to my main application. And since we defined our anime details screen, let's go to all the places that we can navigate. I'm going to start by going to the anime screen. The first place that we have our animes is the featured anime. So let's go inside our top animes list, and top anime is image slider. So here when we click on this item, we need to navigate. So we have our cursor slider, and it has a top anime picture. So this is actually the place inside the inkwell I'm going to navigate. Let's say navigator of context dot push. And let's also move to anime details screen, and at ID I'm going to pass anime dot node dot ID. So it should be ready right now, and now if I click on it, it takes me to the detail page. So let's close these widgets. Inside anime detail screen, we have actually defined this build image, and this is actually using an iOS back button. And I guess the problem is about using a color widget as long as a box decoration. So if you have a color, you have to move it inside the decoration. Let's say save now, and everything is working correctly. But there is still a problem with the color. For example, if I go to the main app, I'm going to see that this is using a white color with a kind of gray color for the icon itself. But here it's a bit different. But that problem might be about theming. I'm going to fix that in a future video. So let's get back to the main app. We're almost done with this. The next widget that I'm going to be creating is the title. So let's return back to the anime details screen. And after putting the top image that I'm going to also comment, let's also put our title. This is rather a small widget, but I'm going to still create a separate widget for that. So let's come here and say build anime title, and we can say that it very well returns a widget. You could specify the type, like saying it returns a text, but I'm not going to do that for now. So this widget takes two parameters, and they are going to be English name and also a name, because every anime has two names. We have a Japanese name and also an English name. Right now we're going to only be displaying the English name, but in the future we should have an option to choose which name we want to display. So let's for now just put the English name here, and I'm also providing it some style. So let's define a style for this, and I'm going to say text style. The font size is going to be 20, and the font weight is going to be 500. We also have the color, and that's going to be theme of context dot primary color. And again, because we don't have our context, we can either import it or just wrap our entire widget with the builder. And this gives us the context necessary. So hit save now. And we also need to put it build anime title, and that's going to be anime dot title. And so the English title, I'm going to say anime dot alternative titles dot English. If you now save, so it says that we have an error. But we're not seeing any error inside the analyzer. So I'm just gonna rebuild the app and come back. So I rebuilt the app and now it's working fine. Let's also change the zoom level. So if we now go to our description, we have our image and we also have our title. But as you see, the title is not displayed so properly. So maybe we should give it some padding, but we don't want to apply the padding to this image because this image has to be taking full weight. So for that reason, I'm going to move it inside yet another column. So let's wrap it with a column, right? And we also need to put it inside a padding. And as always, I'm going to be using a default padding. If you now hit save, we see that the text is displayed properly according to the new padding. But there is still a problem, and this is about color of the text. We don't want the text to be this color. So let's go to main.dart, and here we see that we have not applied our themes. And if you remember, we had a class app theme. Here we have defined our light theme and also our dark theme here, but we haven't used them. So let's first of all make sure material app is not constant. Inside the theme, that is the default theme, we have to apply our light theme. And inside the dark theme, we have to apply our dark theme. Now let's hit save. And we see that our color is back to normal. So after building our title, it is time for us to build the description. First of all, put the size box with a height of 20 to put some space between these two. Then we need to build our description. But the thing about description is that this is usually a very long text. So if you want to be able to control your description, we have to create a specific button. So I'm going to go to command. Inside the widgets folder, I'm going to create a widget called read more text. This should be a global widget, and when you pass a long text to it, it takes care of the rest. So let me just copy and paste everything from here. So this is basically all our widget. It takes a text and it checks if it has to show all the text by saying read more. So what read more does is it determines the max number of lines. So if you are allowed to read more, it displays 1000 lines, that no description is ever that long. Otherwise, it only shows 5 lines. We also have set our overflow to ellipses, and inside the text button that we have, that is either showing a rate less or rate more, I'm gonna change the state of rate more to the opposite. So now let's hit save here, and inside here I'm gonna say rate more text, and I'm gonna pass anime dot synopsis. So if you now hit save, we have our description, and if you click on it, it shows all of it, and if you click on it again, it shows half of it. So this was basically all we had to do about our description. Let's also put another size box, but this time maybe not that long, and I'm gonna put it just 10. But another problem that I noticed is that this title is not aligned as we expected, and that has to do with cross-axis alignment of our new column. So let's set it to start. Hit save, and now the title is aligned correctly. So the next part that we're going to build is the anime info. First of all, let me show you how it looks like in a complete app. So this is basically anime info. There are way too many of them. So I'm creating a widget for each line that is showing a title and also a description, and then I'm going to nest all of them inside the separate widget to make the code look cleaner. So here under the read more text, I'm gonna create a new widget, and that's gonna be called anime info. So let's say build anime info, and again I'm just gonna copy and paste the entire code because all of them were repeated. So come down here under the image title, under the anime title, I'm going to paste my anime info. And what it does exactly is that it returns a list of info text, it passes a label and also a value for them. We also take the number of the studios, for example, because anime studios is a list, so in order to show them in front of each other, I'm going to go and join them one by one by a comma and a space. The same happens for genres. I'm going to go and map each of them, and then I'm going to join them with commas and also with alternative titles. Here we take an anime details as a parameter, and we return a list of info text. So let's build the info text here. Go inside the widget and build a widget called info text.dart. So this is actually a very easy widget. So let's define it as a stateless. I'm going to call it info text. The first widget that we return is a rich text. And here we have two properties. We have final, label. And we also have our info. So let's pass them to the constructor. Inside the rich text, I'm going to first of all put my label, but inside the text span. So here first of all put our text, and that's going to be our label. And then I'm going to pass my style. We also have our children. Let's put a list, and inside that again we need to put text spans. And inside the text, I'm going to again put my info, if I can spell it correctly. So let's also put some commas. Right, and fix our imports. Now we need to come here to import our info text, but here we have a problem, and that is our 2-minute extension is not recognized. In the first video I told you that these are some extensions that I put for you, so you just need to import it here. Nice. We also have an error here, and this is the name of our method. So let me see, build anime info widget, and here you need to pass your anime. Let's see if we have got the name right. In fact, it was right the first time. So this is build anime info, and you need to pass your anime, and that's going to be equal to the anime. Nice. Now if we hit save, you see that our anime info is displayed correctly. So now that we have our anime info in place, let's build the next part. And if you go to the complete app again, here we have the anime background. So let's build it next. So let's build the next part, and the next part is going to be anime background. But before we build this widget, we need to build another widget, and that is going to be our container. We have a widget called white container, and all it does is it returns a material. In fact, it's not even a container. We need an elevation of 3, some border radius. We also need a color, and the color is going to be white 54. So that's why we call it a white container. We also need a padding. And the padding is going to be agentsets.all. Maybe I put a padding of 16 from all the sides. And lastly, inside that padding, we need a child. And the child is going to be equal to the child. And we're going to take that as a parameter. So we basically want to build a wrapper widget, using which we can wrap our other widgets and give them some nice padding and color. So under the build anime info, I also paste my build anime background, and it requires a white container. And I notice that here I have missed a T, so let's name it white container. Beautiful. Let's go up and use our build anime background. And inside the background, I'm going to pass anime.background. But the problem is that this background can be sometimes a null widget. So first of all, let's make a check. So if anime background is not empty, this is the widget I'm going to display. Otherwise, I'm going to display a sizebox.string that takes no space. So let's say save now. And here we should have our build anime background. Or maybe this anime does not have background. Let's go to the next one. Weird, because it is still not showing up. Yes, you see that we have our background here, because as I said, some animes lack a background. So let's also put our size box with a height of 10. And here we go. It looks nice as it should be. So let me go to the complete app again, and after the anime background, we need to create our anime widgets, and this is going to be a grid view that is containing a lot of widgets. So let's start building it. Maybe I'm just leaving this up here at the side and start building the next one. So let's start building our image gallery. I'm going to go down and inside, and under this build anime info, or maybe here, I'm going to build my widget. So this widget is taking a list of images as a parameter, let's say. So if you wonder what picture is, this is one of the models that we have defined, and it contains the properties and string medium and large. So here we have to return a column first, and this column has two children in fact. One is a text that we see image gallery that is not displayed here, maybe because of the color, and one is our grid view. So let's first of all put our text, and inside this style I'm gonna say text styles.medium. So let's put it here for us to be able to see the process of building it. So build image gallery, and this is going to be anime.pictures. So let's go inside build image gallery, and I forgot to say that this is actually a list of pictures and not a single picture. So the error is solved, and now if we hit save, and go back to our main app. So we now can see our text image gallery, but it also reminds me that we need to put some space here. And the file has become too long. Or maybe 20, because these are some big sections. Hit save. Now it's looking there. So now we need to put another size box here. Let me give it a height of 5. Next I'm going to be putting my gridview.builder. The first property that I'm going to specify is item count, and that's going to be equal to images.length. We also need some other properties. The first is shrink wrap, and let's set it to true. Because this is a scrollable widget that we use inside another scrollable widget, we have to make sure that this is fixed, and we also need to change the physics to never be scrollable. So now let's work with our grid delegate, and I'm going to use deliver grid delegate with max cross axis count, fixed cross axis count, and cross axis count is going to be 3. Nice. We also need to specify our child aspect ratio, and that's of course going to be 9:16. We also need to give some space of 8 from both sides. Now all we need to do is to define our item builder. Inside the item builder, the first thing I'm going to do is to take my image, and that's equal to images at index. Return a clip or rect, because we want some border radius, and our border radius is going to be 10. Inside the child, just pass an image.network and put the image.medium inside it. Also make sure to put the boxfit.cover so that the image covers the entire thing. Nice. Let's also make sure that this is constant, and maybe this one. So if we now visit our app, we see that image gallery is actually working, and it's working fine. Let's also test it with another anime, and it is correctly being showed on. So this is our image gallery. It has the text, and it also has a list of widgets. And now that I look at it, we perhaps do not need this size box. But anyway, it was all we had to do with our image gallery. Now we want to click on any of these images and open up another screen. So for that, I'm going to wrap my image.network with an inkwell. And when we tap on it, we have to move to another screen. That screen is going to be called network image view. So let's define it. Again, go inside the command and widgets and define network image view. So this is going to be a very simple view. Import material.dart and take an image URL as a parameter. We also need it to add it to constructor. Inside here, I'm going to return a scaffold. And inside the body, I'm going to return a center. Inside the center, just return an image.network and pass your image URL. Then you need to set the box fit property to match the center. Cover. And this is all we had to do. So let's come here and say we need to push material route. And let me come here, and here we need to return a network image view, and the image URL is going to be image.large. So let's get the formatting right, and the problem here is that I forgot to put the entire thing inside. Here we go, and now it's working fine. So let's hit save now. And now if we go down and click on these images, this is going to open up in a separate view. So in the next video, we will learn how to define our related and recommended enemies. So after building our image gallery, now it is time to build our recommended enemies. And if you notice, that's going to be very similar to this featured enemies, except the fact that we don't have this view all button. And this is also not taking data from API, but rather we already have the data. So let's come here, and inside the featured enemies, I'm just going to copy and paste everything. For this, I'm going to go inside views, and here I'm going to create similar enemies view dot. And I'm going to paste it completely. But we need to make some modification. The first thing is change its name. And we also don't need a ranking type and a label. We need a label and also a list of enemies. So I'm going to say enemy node. Let's also change it here. And next, we don't need a feature builder, and we don't need to take care of loading or error. We just need this part that is representing the data. Copy this one. And we can simply get rid of the feature builder. So here we don't need this button. If you take a look, this is going to be the view all button. So this is inside a row. I'm going to first of all delete this button. And because our row only has one child, I'm just going to get rid of the row itself too. Beautiful. And here, I'm going to return enemy itself instead of enemy.node. And we also need to organize imports. And my preferred habit is to make them shorter and separate from the package imports. Beautiful. Now it's safe to use, so go inside enemy detail. If I can type it actually. So come up here after the image gallery. First of all, copy the size box. Here I'm going to be using similar enemies view. So let's pass our list of enemies, and before that I'm going to format. So inside the list of enemies, let's say enemy dot recommendations, and I'm going to map everything. So each one is an enemy recommendation. I'm going to just turn it into an enemy node because each of them contains a node in itself. And lastly, turn them into a list. And inside the label, I'm just going to say recommendations. So let's also copy it one more time. One of them should be enemy recommendation, and one of them should be similar enemies. I'm going to take a look at the complete app to see which one. So first of all, we have our related enemy, and then we have our recommendations. So let's say related enemy, and here we have recommendations. Also here I'm going to say related enemy, and this is going to be related enemy. And we need to copy it and change it to related enemy. The outcome is not different. Let me just go back to the complete app. Now we successfully have our related enemy and also recommendation. But one bit of tiny detail that we missed is that these two should be at the start. So now let's go to similar enemies view, and now that we don't have a row, we have to provide a cross-axis alignment and make it the start. and this is displayed correctly. Nice. I also want to add one more feature, and that is if you click on this anime tile, you have to be taken to a detail screen, like the one that we are inside right now. So for that, wrap your anime tile with an inkwell. And inside the OnTab property, make sure to navigate to anime detail screen. Now hit save. And now if you click on any of these items, you are taken to another detail page where you have your all features, your image gallery that you can click on, and you also have your related anime that again you can click on. So with this, our detail page is complete. Everything seems to be working fine. So with that, our home page is also complete, but we still miss some points like the ability to be able to click on any of these items and navigate. That should be an easy homework for you. Next, let's start working on a search feature. So now that we have defined our animate screen, it is time to work on our search screen. Inside the list of screens, replace the centered widget with your actual search screen. Now create search screen inside screens folder. For now, I'm gonna save home screen and close it. So let's define our search screen here. Inside the build method, I'm gonna return a scaffold with the padding from all sides. Inside here we have a column. We first of all put the size box with a height of 50 to give some space from the top. Then we put the text, and this is called search for animes. And then I'm gonna put another size box with a height of 20 this time. Inside that I'm gonna put an inkwell, but the OnTab is empty for now. Then we put a clipboard rect with a border radius of 30, and inside that I'm gonna put my container. The height is 70, and inside that we have a widget called search, but here it is just a container. Now inside inkwell I'm gonna use the shoeSearch method. This is a method defined by Flutter team itself, and this is no method I have defined myself. So it requires us a search delegate, and I'm gonna create it here. This search delegate takes 4 methods, and we have to define them one by one. So first of all, I'm gonna put my list of animes here. Then I create a method for searching anime using the query. And again, query is something we have inside the search delegate. It is not a text field or something like that. So list of animes is equal to get animes by search API, and we also make sure to await it. And then we have to put it all inside the list of animes we have. So the first method I'm gonna build is build actions. And inside that I'm gonna put an icon button. If you want to know how to work with search delegates, I have a specific tutorial about working with search delegate and search feature. I'm gonna put it at the top right now. You can watch it to understand better. But here we have a query, and every time I click on this button, that is a clear icon, we clear our query. The next method that we have is build leading, and inside the build leading, we have an arrow back. What this widget does is to close our search field. Then we have a build results, and inside it we return build search results. So let's define our fourth method, that is build suggestions. Inside here we perform an actual search, and that is search anime. And then we return build search results. Build suggestion is the most important method because every time you input something inside your keyboard, this method is being called. Build search results or build result method is only called when you click on the finish icon and you are done searching. But this method is going to be called every time you press a key. So let's define it here. First of all, we check if the query is empty. So we return that the query is empty. Otherwise, I'm going to say we have to perform a search using a feature builder. Inside the feature, I'm going to call get anime by search API. And this is a method we define that takes a query and search it. Then inside the builder, we check if we are waiting and we don't have any data. In that case, we return a center widget with a circular progress indicator. Otherwise, if a snapshot has error, we just return an error page, but this time we define it explicitly and do not use our prepared widget. Otherwise, it means that we have data, so I'm gonna first of all get the list of animes using snapshot.data, and if by any chance the list is empty, I'm gonna put an empty list. So then I'll return a search results view and pass my list of enemies. Search result view is a widget that is returning a list view and displays all our enemies. Let's start defining it by using padding, and I'm going to be using a default padding. Then I'm going to return a list view.builder, and inside that I'm going to put my item count and also item builder. Inside the item builder I'll get my enemy and return an enemy list style. And this is the widget that we had defined earlier. So now let's go inside our home screen, and I'm going to be importing my search screen. Let's also perform a hard restart. If you now come back to search screen, we see this widget, and if we click on this, it is going to take us to the actual search delegate. This search delegate is only working if we have at least 3 characters. So if I start typing O, N, and just E, the search results are going to start appearing. Beautiful. And if you now click on any of these enemies, we're not taking any search screen. So let's start working on that too. Come back inside search screen, and here we have our search result view. For now, if you click on any of these enemies, you're not going to take them to any place. So let's go to enemy list style. So inside the inkwell property, define a navigator to return to details page. I'm going to do it quick. So now let's hit save. And now if you click on any of these items, it is going to take you to a detail page that we just learned how to create. So this is basically everything about the search widget, and now we can see everything in action. If you click on the clear button, it is going to clear the text field, and if you're going to click on the back button, it's going to get you out of the search screen. So this was all about the search screen. In the next video, we will learn how to build our categories screen. So now that we have defined our search screen, let's also define our categories screen. This is how it looks right now, but if you visit the complete app, this is how our category screens look. We have 9 different categories of enemies, and each of them are displaying a grade. So let's go back to the complete tab and start defining it. Right now we are inside home screen, and inside our screen property of the bottom navigation bar, we are just returning a text. So let me replace it with the categories screen widget. Next, we need to define it inside screens. And here I'm going to create it as a stateful widget. So now we also need to import it inside home screen and close this tab. Let's also close this one. So inside categories screen, we need to have our tab bar. For that, we wrap everything inside the default tab controller. The length is going to be 9, and the child is in scaffold. The reason I'm using a scaffold is because we have a body. We also have our tab bar inside our app bar. So let's define our app bar with a title. Inside the bottom property of the app bar, this is where we define our tab bar. Our tab bar requires a list of tabs, so let's define it. There are many ways you can define your list of tabs. For example, we can just say we have an explicit list of tabs, and I'm going to put 9 tabs here. But this method is not very good, because if you, for example, have more tabs, this is going to be painful to maintain them, and this is also taking a lot of space. So let's use a simple approach, and that approach is using enemy categories. We have already defined a list of enemy categories here that we need for different occasions. So we can just map them and turn them into a list, knowing that they have the title and also their ranking type. Both of them are going to prove useful later. So let's say enemy categories, and I'm going to map each of them, and lastly turn into a list. So each of them is going to be called an enemy category, and for each of them I'm going to return a tab, and every tab has a text, and that's going to be enemy category.title. So I'm going to pass my list of tabs and refresh the app. We may also need to do a hard restart. So now as you see, we have list of our tabs, but they are so small that we cannot even read them. The only thing we know is that they all start with letter T. So to make them bigger, we need to use scroll while property and set it to true. This way we tell Flutter that they can be scrolled, so they can take as much space as they need. And this makes them to appear as big as they are and show all the text. But we have another problem too, that we have some unwanted margin on this left side. So to get rid of that margin, we can just use the tab alignment. Tab alignment dot start. So save the project and it is working fine. I'm also adding some more configurations here. For example, I'm going to change the indicator size to be as big as the label. I'm also giving some color and weight. So let's hit save now. And this is the tab that we desire. So this is all about our tab property, but we also need to provide our body here. So right now we are inside our app bar, and outside of it we just need to define our body. And inside the body I'm going to be using my tab bar view. So the tab bar view is in control with our tab bar, and it syncs accordingly. Inside here I'm going to put my list of screens that we haven't yet defined, but using the same approach that we did here, I'm going to also define my screens. So let's do it. Again, I'm going to go and map anime categories. And lastly, turn it into a list. And this time, for each anime category, I'm going to return an anime grid view. And also need to pass my category. That is going to be anime category dot ranking type. Beautiful. So we now have a list of screens here, but we also need to define our anime grid view. Let's do it here. So I'm going to go inside the views and define my anime grid view dot dart. And let's make sure to remove that last A. So what basically anime grid view does, it is to make an API call, and then it gets the list of animes and then pass it to another widget. So let's define it. By now I'm sure you're pretty confident in making API calls and using Future Builder. So if you want, you can just pause the video and do it on your own. Otherwise, let's do it together. So let's call it anime grid view here. And as always, I'm going to be using a feature builder. So inside the feature, I'm going to call my good old method, and that is get anime by ranking type API. It requires us a ranking type and also a limit. Let's get our ranking type as a parameter. I'm going to call it category to match my naming convention there. And let's make sure to spell the required right. So now we can import it here, anime grid view, and we also need to pass our category. So close this one. Inside our ranking type, I can just pass my category, and inside the limit, I'm going to say 100. This is going to be quite enough. So inside the builder, we get our context and the snapshot. And again, I'm going to take care of the loading and error cases. I'm going to do it fast. So in case that we have data, I'm going to first of all get list of animes. And then I'm going to return a widget. And this widget is called animes grid list. We pass two properties here. One is our title, and that's going to be category.title. The next one is going to be list of animes, and I'm going to simply pass my animes. So here we need to use an anime category, And inside the ranking type, I'm going to pass category.ranking type. So let's also go to our previous screen, and that's going to be category screen. Here we actually need to pass the entire anime category, right? So this page is complete. Let's now create our animes grid list. I'm gonna again build it inside the views folder. So this is called animes grid list.dart. So I'm just gonna copy and paste all the code here. So here we basically have a stateless widget, and inside it we have a masonry grid view.builder. And this is coming with the package from the same name. Here we have some property about spacing, an item count and item builder, the same as a simple grid view. We also get our anime from list of animes and pass it to a grid tile. So grid tile is actually a simple widget. It is a material with a cache network image inside it, and it also has a routing to anime details page. So let's change the routing to our new style. Beautiful. So let's hit save here, and here also we need to import the animes grid list. And here we need to pass a list of animes. So here we have to make sure this is not null, and we're already checking here. Snapshot the data is not null. So let's save. And as soon as we save, we see that we received a list of animes, and that is actually so great. So here it is, our list view is in front of us. And if you now click on any of these items, we're going to be taken to a detail page. So with this, our categories screen is coming to a conclusion. In the next video, we will learn how to apply dark mode and also save data inside shared preferences. So now that we are done creating our categories screen, let's start working on our settings screen. I'm going to start by creating my database helper. So let's go inside our lib folder and create a folder that is called database helper. Inside this folder, I'm going to create a file called database helper.dart. So the database we use for this project is called shared preferences, and we use this database to store our data as key value pairs inside the user's device. So first of all, let's create our database helper class. Inside this class, I'm going to create an instance, and I'm going to make sure to use the singleton pattern. So for that, create a private constructor of the class. Then we need to create an instance of the class using which we have to access our methods. And this way we can ensure that we can only access the methods in this class using this instance and only this instance. Let's also create an instance of our database that is shared preferences. Then we need to create the database getter. This getter is returning an instance of shared preferences. So if the database getter is not null, it means it is initialized. We just return it. And if this is null, we have to initialize it and also then return. So inside the any database method, I'm going to get an instance of shared preferences and put it inside the database. Then I'm going to return the database and make sure this is not null. Then we need to define our methods for our settings. The first setting that we work on is changing our dark mode. So first we have to define a getter, and this getter is checking if you are inside dark mode or not. So first of all, get an instance of database, and using that instance, we use the getBool method. This method checks the database for a key, and in this case our key is defined here. So our key is dark mode, and this is going to check our database to see if this key returns true or not. And as the method signature shows you, this method is going to return a boolean, and in case this method is null, we're going to return false. So overall, this method is checking if you are inside the dark mode or not. We also have a method for setting our dark mode, and this method is taking a parameter of isDark. Again, we need to take our database instance, and this time instead of getting, we are setting a boolean, and again I'm going to be using isDark mode, and I'm going to be setting into isDark property, so this can be true or false. We also have a method for anime title language, and this is going to be exactly the same as the above one. And we also have a setter method. So this was all about our database helper. Next, let's create our qubits. So now that we are done creating our shared preferences, this is time to handle our states. So in this application, we're gonna have two states. One is gonna be our theme. We're gonna take care if we have a dark theme or a light theme. We also have the title language. It means that every anime has two titles, and we have to take care which title to display, the English one or the Japanese. So for the sake of this project, I'm gonna be using Bloc and specifically qubits. So let's define qubits folder. Inside this folder, I'm gonna define two qubits. The first is our theme qubit. So now it's time to define our qubits, but before that, if you wanna learn how Bloc and qubits work, I have a specific tutorial about that. You can check the link in the description. So let's start by defining our theme qubit class, and this class is gonna extend the theme qubit of top our theme mode. So theme mode is gonna be our set for this application. It can be a light theme or a dark theme. First of all, we need to create our constructor and specify our default value. In this case, this is theme mode.system. So this is taking the theme mode from the user's phone. Then I'm gonna call getCurrentTheme, that is getting the current theme from shared preferences. And we have already defined the method for that. We have a getter here that is checking if we are inside the dark mode by comparing our state to dark mode. And then we define getCurrentTheme method. This method is going to be using database helper and specifically is dark mode getter. It is saving the dark mode inside its dark mode variable and then emit a new state. So this state is going to emit a theme mode.dark if we are inside the dark mode and theme mode.light otherwise. We also have a method for changing the theme, and this method is taking a parameter. Again, I'm going to be using database helper and set dark theme, and I'm going to set my dark theme according to the parameter and also emit a new state. The last method that we have here is getting is dark mode, but this one the difference is that we do not emit a new state, but we only get our is dark mode and return it. So this is basically all about our theme qubit. Let's also define our second qubit, and this qubit is going to be anime title language qubit. So what this qubit does is that it listens to the default language of the app and displays the anime names accordingly. So let's start creating it. So let me just copy and paste everything, and here as you see, this is very similar to the theme qubit, except this time we have a boolean type that I have defined using a type div. Again, inside the super constructor, I have a default value, and I'm calling this method to get the default value from the database. The only difference is the method that we use. This time we're using is English getter, and also the set is English setter. So let's hit save now. Now this is time to create our actual settings screen. So let me go to home screen again. Here, instead of returning this center widget, I'm gonna return my settings screen. Let's go to screens folder here, and I'm gonna create settings screen.dart. Let's create this screen as an stateful widget. I also gonna import it here and close it. So the first thing I'm gonna return here is in scaffold. So inside the scaffold we have an app bar, and inside the app bar I'm gonna have a title with a text called settings. Let's also define our body, and inside the body I'm gonna put first of all a padding, and let me put the padding of the default padding. Inside the padding we have a child that is obviously a column. So inside the column, let's return our children. I also want to define my, let me get it formatting right. So I also want to define my cross-axis alignment. That is going to be start. So then inside the children, we have three widgets. We have one widget for the dark theme, we have a size box, and we also have another widget for the anime title language. So it sounds like the app is stopped working, so let me just run it again. So the app is up and running right now. Let's go to settings screen. Here as you see we only have settings. So let me first of all go here and make sure that we center the title. Let's set it to true, hit save. Nice. So let's go inside our column. Here we have 3 widgets as we said. So let's build our first widget, and this is going to be regarding our theme. So I'm going to say theme switch widget. I'm going to create this widget separately here as an stateless widget, or maybe as an stateful widget. Let's call it theme switch widget. So this class is going to take care of our dark theme. For that reason, I'm going to create a boolean flag, and by default I'm going to set it to false. Inside the build method, I'm just going to return a row, because every theme has a text and also has a switch. So before defining our children, let me put the main axis alignment, and this is going to be space between. So inside the children, first of all, I'm going to put the text, and this is going to be is dark mode. Then I'm going to put my actual switch, that is going to be a Cupertino switch. This got a value, I'm going to set it to is dark mode, and it has an unchanged method. For now I'm going to put an anonymous method. It also takes a value. So this is going to be the UI for that. And we need to just save everything to see if it works. So it works beautifully. But in order to be working with this method, we need to use our block, and to be able to use our block, we need to provide it. So let's just go back to the main dot, and I'm going to wrap my material app with a block provider. And now I'm going to turn it into a multi-block provider. So let me just import the block, and I'm going to convert it to multi-block provider. So here we need to at least provide 2 blocks. I'm going to provide my both qubits. The first is going to be theme qubit, and the second one is going to be anime title language qubit. Nice. So now let's go back to the settings screen. Here I define a method for changing our is dark mode. So inside this method, first of all, I'm gonna change the is dark mode to its opposite to be able to toggle it. I need to perform this operation inside the steady state. So let's just steady state and do this, and I'm gonna turn it to arrow operation. Nice. Let's also remove this to be able to perform everything in one line. So now we need to use our block and actually toggle our dark mode. So to access our block, we need to use context.read, and I'm going to specify my block. In this case, this is going to be a theme qubit, and I'm going to go and call the method change theme and set this dark mode to dark mode. Nice. Let's directly call this method here, and inside here I have used dark mode. So let's hit save and go to settings screen. And now if you click on this, you can actually toggle it. But the problem here is that we are not changing it. So for that, we need to go again to main.dart, and here, as you see, we don't have a theme mode. So in order to be able to use this, we need to specify our theme mode. So we also need to wrap our material app with one more widget, and that is going to be a block builder. So we use a block builder to be able to access the values inside of our block. In this case, I'm going to be defining theme qubit, and theme qubit is of type theme mod. So let's say theme mod is equal to state, and inside the material app, I'm going to put my theme mod, and I'm going to set it to theme mod. Beautiful. So now if you come to the settings screen and change this, our theme mod is actually changing, but we might still have a problem. For example, if I just hard restart the application. So if we restart the application, you see that we have the correct theme, But if you come inside settings, inside this dark mode, the button displays the wrong theme. It says that this dark mode is not true, but in fact it is true. So to solve that problem, we need to come here and wrap our Cupertino switch with the block builder again. Here again, I'm going to be using a theme qubit, and I'm going to say theme mode. So here we need to say we have to initialize the value of its dark mode. So I'm going to say its dark mode is equal to state, comparing it to theme mode dot dark. So as you see here, the initial value of the theme mode is wrong. So every time the button is built, you have to first of all initialize its dark mode, that is by default false, to the value of its dark mode and compare it to the state. So now I'm gonna hit save and change the menu. If I come back, you see that its dark mode is showing the right value. So this was basically all about the theme qubit. So now that we created our dark mode switch, it is also time to create our next one. First of all, I'm gonna put some size box here. The height is gonna be probably 20. And as our entire video is gonna be constant, so let me add constant here and not here. So let's create our next switch, and I'm gonna call it Anime Title Language Switch. So as this switch is gonna be so similar to this one, maybe I should just copy and paste it. So let me just create it as a stateful widget. Nice. And here I'm gonna return the entire row. So here I'm gonna define my state, but instead of its dark mode, I'm gonna say it's English, and I'm gonna initially set it to false. Again, we need a text, and this text is gonna be it's English. And inside the block builder, I'm gonna be using Anime Title Language qubit, and this one is gonna be a boolean. Here, instead of its dark mode, I'm gonna say is English, and I can directly set it to state. So this time our state is gonna be of type boolean. So I'm gonna say is English directly is equal to state. Inside my Cupertino switch, I'm gonna put my is English, and inside the unchanged, I'm gonna say toggle anime title language. I know this is such a long name, but you always have to try to choose very meaningful names, or otherwise you're gonna forget them. So let's create this method. For this method, we do not require any parameter, so I can just put an underscore here, and let's also say this is async. But the reason we put an underscore is because underscore is considered to be a parameter here, and this method onChange, it requires as a parameter, but we're not gonna touch it. I'm just putting here to exist. So first of all, let's set the state and change our UI, and inside that I'm gonna say is English is equal to not is English, meaning that I'm gonna reverse the value of is English, because this is how you toggle a button. If this is true, you set it to false, and if this is false, you set it to true when you click on it. Next, I'm gonna be using my blog. So let's say context.read, and this time I'm gonna be using Anime Title Language qubit, and let's say change Anime Title Language, and I'm gonna change it to English. Let's hard reload the application, and we already have is English. I'm gonna go to the home screen and open up one of the animes where it has a default Japanese name. So inside categories, this is our top anime, and as you see right now, it has an English name, but this is while our is English is turned off. So let's turn it on, and we still see our English name, but that could be because inside our anime detail screen, we have yet not take care of that part. So let's go to that. So inside anime detail screen, let's find our anime title. And as you see right now, we are already returning English name. So let me just return a block builder here. And this, first of all, we need to import it and also say its type. Inside the builder, we also have our state. So here I'm gonna say is English is gonna be is equal to state. So if this is English, I'm gonna say English name. Otherwise, I'm gonna say name. Nice. So let me hit save here. So now if you open up this anime, this is still showing an English name. And if you turn it off, now it has to show a Japanese name. Nice. So this was our second switch, and to test if this is working properly, I'm gonna turn both of them on because their default value is false, and I'm gonna hard restart the application to see if their value is being reset or saved in the database. So the app is hard restarted, and as you see, the theme is dark, so we know for sure that our dark theme is working. We also have our as English set to true, so it means it is also working. So by finishing this screen, our app is all complete. So this is the time to say this was all about this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, you can ask in the comments. See you in the next video.